welcome back to part 2 of this video. So I will be continuing with the management portion. So when it comes to investing, all right, it's not always about just the business or the numbers. It is also about the people that's running the business. Hence, I'm always on the lookout for excellent management because this is very important for them to drive the business that I'm invested in further. Okay, all right, so moving into the management, the first person we want to look at is the CEO. All right, so iFAST CEO is Mr. Lim Chun. So he co-founded iFAST back in 2000, starting from Singapore, and throughout his the whole career there, he has expanded to Hong Kong, Malaysia, China, and India. Okay, so Mr. Lim, previously he was the head of research at ING Bearing Security Private Limited, as well as having 8 years of background as a research analyst at a stock broking firm. Okay, so this shows that Mr. Lim has relevant experience prior to starting up iFAST. Okay, so this actually tells me that the CEO, he don't come from a background without any knowledge on fintech or investment. He do have some relevant, or in fact I would say he do have relevant knowledge prior to it. So this gives me some confidence in this whole thing. Now, I also managed to find some interview of Mr. Lim previously, okay, and would like to share with you guys some of these few pointers. So usually when I look for management, I always try to hunt down if there's any interviews of him, because through these interviews, through conversations, we are able to decipher to see whether how this management thinks, how the management behaves, and so on. So it's something very important for us as investors to dig it out. Okay, so based on this interview that I managed to find, okay, now it's stated, firstly, in 2003, when SARS happened, iFAST was burning about 200 to 300,000 of cash, which back then can be quite substantial. However, Mr. Lim invested his own money into the business to make it a success. So this move speaks a lot about his commitment to iFAST. Okay, and the second point, Mr. Lee mentioned that if you want the business to succeed, someone in the key position needs to be convinced that it will make it. So looking at this, I can take it that person that wants it to make it is none other than Mr. Lim. And of course, I believe his management team are also part of the people in key positions that believe the business will be a success. Okay, so on the third point, right, Mr. Lim mentioned that their intention of iFAST is to help investors invest globally and profitably in the long run. And looking at the last point, he also mentioned that many businesses present themselves as a global business, but may not necessarily be running a business model that is actually global. All right, so hence understanding what Mr. Lim's aim for iFAST is all about, okay, which is to help investors to invest globally, meaning to say that he's thinking for the consumer, and at the same time, he wants to run a real global business where the business model suits many different countries, and it is proven to be the case because he started out in Singapore and he slowly moves on to Hong Kong, Malaysia, China, India. Okay, so later we will take a look at the financials to see whether does it make sense and does it rhyme together with what he says. Okay, and to the very last point which I have highlighted in bold is that in 2018, iFAST sets a target to reach 100 billion AUA by 2028. Okay, so just a short note, right? Currently, the latest quarter, his iFAST AUA is at 17 billion. Okay, now in the previous video, I have also talked about why AUA is important to iFAST. So this speaks a lot of their growth target that they want to hit. Okay, now the next person we'll talk about is the COO, Mr. Wong Sun Shen. So he also joined iFAST in year 2000. So previously he was a manager for marketing, product development, sales, and administrations. So previously he had experience as an external auditor, credit analysis, and accountant. So basically, the COO have prior knowledge of the fintech world, or rather the financial world, before joining iFAST. Okay, and the third person is the CFO, Mr. David Leon. So he joined iFAST in year 2006. He spearheaded iFAST IPO in 2014, and before that, he has more than 20 years of experience in auditing, accounting, taxation, etc. And most important thing is that he was named as the best CFO, okay, for listed companies with less than 300 million in market capitalization at Singapore Corporate Awards. So this three, management tells me that iFAST really do have capable people with relevant experience to run the business. Okay, so this is very important, because if we invest in tech company, who is running the business for us matters a lot. Because if you have a good business but a very lousy management, the business will not go far. So this is what it's all about. Okay, now after we understand the management, I want to talk on a little bit of the financials. I will not be going in depth of all the various financial figures, because I believe the internet outside has a sufficient knowledge and sufficient info that you can go read about it. So basically, I'm only here to, my intention here is to share with you all my thought process when I look at the financials, when I look at all the reports that I have for every companies that I'm investing in or I'm looking into it. Okay, so now back to the financials. Most important thing is that we want to see growth in the revenue, because if there is no growth in the revenue, then there's no point in investing in the company, unless there is signs of turnaround businesses, which we can talk about it at another time. So looking at iFAST, we can see that on year basis, they are growing both recurring and non-recurring revenue. Okay, so just a quick note, what's recurring? Basically, recurring, it's a revenue that comes in on a very regular basis, and non-recurring, it's more like one-off revenue, which is not fixed. It comes in here and there, now and then. Yeah, so that's the quick differences between recurring and non-recurring. Now, and in 2021, I would like to bring your attention to here. 2021, we can see that they are, in the target to improve, to exceed the revenue back in 2020, because currently just the first half of 2021, right, their revenue is already more than half of 2020, and we assume no growth between the first half and the second half of 2021, meaning to say, in 2021, if the revenue stays the same as per the first half, okay, they will definitely exceed 2020's revenue. So this is something very amazing that I want to see, a year-on-year revenue growth. Okay. All right, so moving on to the geographical segment in terms of profit and loss, as we all know, iFAST operates in 5 different countries. Okay. Now, the thing is, if you recall, all right, Mr. Lim said that he wants to have a global business, or rather a business model that operates globally. So we need to track whether do they have a good product market fit? Because if they have, year on year, the profit will improve. So I want to bring your attention to the year on year change. Now, if you look at the full quarter, second quarter 2020 versus second quarter 2021, you can see that all the 5 countries, okay, or rather most of the 4 countries, they do have increased in terms of improvement in terms of the profit. All right, of course, China is still loss making at this moment, but they are improving. Now, if we look at the first half of 2020 versus the first half of 2021, we can see that the profit and loss do improve. Okay, so that's the financials and so on. All right, so now that we have better understanding of the iFAST management and revenue, so in my next video, we will talk about the growth plans as well as valuations. Okay, so the reason why we need to understand growth plans is because when we invest in a company, we need to know whether are they growing or are they stagnant. For me, I prefer to look for growing TCs. So therefore, it is very important for us to dive deep into the growth segment. Okay, so with that, I come to the end of my video. So remember to like and subscribe and do comment below to see whether if there's anything I want to improve or if there's anything you guys want to know. And I assure you that I will read most of all the comments. All right, so with that, invest safe.